so much water because in an effort to get rid of my headache, I've been doing everything possible. So
You're welcome to let the dog out, Janet.
I'm gonna go let the dog out.
This is weird.
But wait, is everyone back on yet? We don't know. Okay,
I don't think
I'll
so.
be right back.
Go ahead. Go let the dog out. Is anybody here? We'll just see. We'll see if anybody's here. Hey, hello. It's just us. It's just the two of us. It's just Truth and just me today. I don't know what happened to them. I'm trying to write down my notes, guys. Let's see how many people make it. How many people were... Oh, that was weird. I'm back. Somehow I left the stage as well. There we go. That almost got awkward for everybody. My bad, guys. I don't know what I just did, but it almost got super awkward.
Uh-oh, really?
Yeah,
Sorry, I missed
because,
that.
well, I hit a button. I don't know. I was trying to write my notes, and I looked up, and I was gone.
Uh-oh.
Oh, God. Now nobody's there.
No.
Yeah.
Everybody made their way back in. That's fantastic.
I don't know if everybody did.
I mean, a lot of people did. And some new folks. Some new folks are here that weren't in the Patreon
Shiloh, are you in here now?
stream.
And also, hi, everyone else. I don't mean to monopolize.
Yeah, I only
just
want to
asking
talk
about
Shiloh.
Shiloh. No, but I switched over to a new GP who I really like, and I had a physical on Monday, and I already was really, because she was recommended to me by a friend, but then while we were talking, I was like, yeah, I think I really like her. And then as soon as she said, blah, 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 one of my kiddos, and I was like, that's like a check it off the list. Like as soon as someone refers to their kid as their kiddo, I'm like, I like this person. I know that I'm going to like this person. And I almost texted Shiloh on Monday to say, can we agree? Because I know that Shiloh also calls her daughter Sydney a kiddo. I was like, can we agree that when someone says my kiddo, you're like, you're one of us.
That I didn't know Shiloh had a kid?
I guess we can agree. I guess we can agree on that.
This is new information to me now.
I guess we can agree.
I've known this woman for years. I have hung out with her. I have no idea.
She's a really cool
kiddo. I feel like I knew that.
How did I not know that?
I think you probably did know and you forgot.
Probably. We did discuss too in the pregame that perhaps that Shiloh and Scott may need to be our roommates. Any update on? Do you know that in the trivia game I was playing last night with Erica and her parents at the trivia, one of the answers to the trivia question was Joni Mitchell. I got it right.
Good work. What was the question?
Don't remember.
What concert is Janet going to have to go to?
Yeah. It was, I didn't get it. I kind of got it right by default because the category was female artists. So I was running through my head. I'm like, Joan Jett, Joni Mitchell, Pink. I was running them all through my head. Did she have an album called Blue?
Yeah.
That's the one. That was the one. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was her album
well
Blue
done.
This. And I was like, Joni Mitchell. Yes. And Steph and Erica's dad was like, yes.
Did you write it with a question like that?
No, Erica was our scribe because she's a child and she didn't know the answer to most of the questions.
Correct.
It was basically me and her parents answering most of them. Oh, no.
My goodness. Of Caroline, listen, that is so flattering. What I'm wearing right now is this. I put my blush on and then I said, I don't know. And then I just put my blush on my eyes. I was like, sounds good. Let's go ahead and put some blush there. Great.
For those listening, Caroline asked if Janet could do an eye makeup tutorial in the chat.
So the eye makeup tutorial is you want to go ahead and take your pinky or your ring finger and smear blush
and I just looked above that and now I'm really upset.
So that's why I think I knew this. I was going to say that, but really I wasn't. Bad. When we were sitting talking with Dr. Shiloh, I thought there was a child with us.
Yeah.
How old?
Oh, you know what? You probably weren't wearing your progressives, so you couldn't see a child was down here.
Okay. All right.
An adult was up here.
All right.
And Valerie, I see your post too, and I will look at your Facebook post.
That's bullshit. You won't even look at my Facebook post.
I made a Facebook post the other day. First time in a year.
That wasn't the follow-up, you mean?
Yeah, on my personal Facebook.
Oh,
usually if I make a Facebook post, if I do make one, it's It's because I'm trying to sell something or get rid of something.
Oh,
But like an
got it.
actual.
I think my Instagram rolls over onto Facebook. At least it used to, but that I
Mine's
never go
all
to my own
fucked up.
page ever.
My social media is so fucked up because at one point somebody else was going to help run the official Truth and Justice
Mm-hmm.
page, not the fan page, but the page.
Mm-hmm.
And they have not done it for years. I posted on it for years. And then when I started doing Instagram, I tried to connect my Instagram to the Facebook, and it won't let me because I don't have permission. I've got a hold of that person. They have tried to like give me permission, and like there's just like no way out of it. Like there's like we're like in this crazy Facebook loop where they're the owner. It won't let them transfer the ownership. Every time they do something, it says it's processing, and then years later nothing happens. So I don't have access to the main. But I think the like on Audio Boom, when we publish episodes, it's like it's connected to it. So those, every time we do an episode, it automatically publishes it on our Facebook page. But I don't have access to our Facebook page. Yeah, and so I can't connect the Instagram. That's how the Instagram became. I ended up just making my personal page.
We have Facebook does some weird shit. We have that with our shop page. We have a shop page that is our Conception Gallery page, and then Facebook has created one that's like, it says Conception Gallery, and then we will like request ownership. They'll give it to us. They'll lump it in with our current one, and the next thing we know, there's another. It's like regenerated itself.
Yeah,
out there.
Oh, like a worm.
Yeah.
There's something crazy with it. I cannot get them connected. And then Kelly, when Kelly Brink was running our stuff, she made, which I just remember just now, she made a Truth and Justice Instagram.
Yes.
That I think I have access to, that I've never posted on, because Kelly used to post on it all the time. Huh. Which now that makes sense, because recently somebody sent an email or something and was like, is anybody ever going to post on the Truth and Justice Instagram? And I'm like, what are you talking about, crazy?
No, there definitely was one.
There is one. I think, let's see if we have any messages. Can I get to it? How do I get to it?
Uh-oh.
How do I get to it?
If you're not logged into it, I don't know. I can show you how to get to it if you're logged into it.
I think I am. I think if I hit this little arrow here, Truth Justice Pod. Okay.
450,000 messages.
Okay. 2,800 followers there. Haven't made a post there since, where are we at here? June 11th, 2023. That would be Kelly did that.
It's only a little over a year. It's not a big deal.
Oh, 19 messages. Look at that. Yeah. Okay. A message from Janet Barney. That's interesting.
Really?
I'm guessing that's probably, you had just tagged me in something.
Oh, yeah.
Janet's like, what?
I thought have I ever sent a message to
anyone ever?
Anyone?
Huh. I should do something about that. I keep thinking, I think about this all the time. I was like, because I want this story we're doing now to just continue to spread to more people, so more people are hearing what's happening here. And I'm just like, I don't like how, like, I need our listeners to be posting about it more. And then I'm like, how, and like, I probably should be making social media posts that people can.
Yeah.
But I
have Erica do that.
Oh, she's not. You would think, her being a teenager, she doesn't really do social media.
Really? Oh, it always warms my heart when I hear that, just to know that, like, it's like this generation isn't just one thing, everyone. Like, there's
she is not at all. Like,
not into it.
If you like, you could look at her Instagram account and not know what she looks like. Like, she doesn't ever post anything of herself. Like, she'll like her stories usually just repost her friends' stuff. She's just not on social at all. So that is not one of the skills that I hired her for, because she's about as social media savvy as I am. Zach could do it. Zach's really good at it. Yeah. Maybe Zach got an NBI email. I'll make a deal with you, Zach. I'll give you an NBI email address, and you start doing our social media.
I don't know if you know this. I'm good with social media.
You are good at it. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So I got that shit.
Okay, that's it.
That's now exciting.
On, Zach's our new social media manager.
And if you do,
like I need to pay him for that, though.
Invite me to be a collaborator, and then I can, then I can I can automatically like approve it and it'll go on my feed too.
Oh, is that what that means?
Mm-hmm.
See, because when True Crime Obsessed did the posted our episode on their feed for us, Jillian and their little social media guy were like, let's do a collaborated post now.
Yeah.
And I was like, what? And then I never did it.
Zach,
That's what that
taking
means?
over.
Hey, Rebecca.
Apparently she got off the bus
Rebecca.
and then got
4
off the bus.
times, 4 different buses.
Yeah, got off the bus and then got off the bus.
That's a rough ride, Rebecca. You got on a bus, off a bus, on a bus, off a bus. This is funny for the people listening. Rebecca.
Oh yeah, really funny.
Reposted the same thing several times.
Should we get started?
Yeah, because you missed this. Erica is stopping on her day off, is stopping by with one of her friends because they're going to Crumble Cookie and they're bringing us cookies to sample.
Wonderful.
And I told her we'd be done by 1, and that's what I need.
Okay.
You know what
All
I
right.
need? I need some Crumble Cookies.
Yeah.
So let's go ahead and end the pregame episode. Pregamers, we love you guys. All of our patrons,
Thanks,
we love everybody,
Pregamers.
and especially you guys. Bye. Okay, pregame is done, and action.
And rolling.
1, 2, 3.
Did you say action?
He sure did. He surely did.
Ahoy, friends. Thank you for tuning in to Truth and Justice. You are listening to the Friday follow-up for Season 15, Episode 4, The Lynchpin. This week, Bob broke down the timeline surrounding the murder of Demario Lowe's. We also got a chance to hear from the state's key witness themselves. And it was ground-shattering. We have a lot to discuss this week, and Bob, Janet, and I are here to discuss it all. What did I fuck up?
Beth, I'm just waiting for Janet to go. I think we both had. Oh, it looked like you.
To not laugh, or is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I was like, what did I fuck up this time?
No, nothing. I think we both just had an interesting reaction to the phrase ground shattering.
It was good.
Yeah. Didn't expect
I've heard groundbreaking and
Yeah.
earth shattering, and this
Both
was a
those two
combination
things.
of
No,
both.
yeah,
He's taking
ground
the
shattering.
best things about both and putting
He
them
brought
together.
them together
Listen,
into ground shattering.
I like making words. It might catch
No
on.
reason it's basically the same
know-
thing. No reason they shouldn't go together.
Yeah.
Listen, you guys, I didn't like my double dip. Now you don't like my ground shattering.
And Eric, I remember yesterday when I told you that we're going to make this thing real tight because we got a lot of work to do tomorrow. Well, here's your first big edit. You got to cut all this bullshit out, and then here we go. What do I say now? Hang on. Sorry. I'm fine. All right. Yeah, I think this was a big episode, and from here we're kind of Eric and I. We've got a lot going on this week, so I guess I'll talk about some of that now. I can't really talk about all of it, but we've made a lot of connections, communications this week. We have received. I sound like a politician, just like saying words.
I like
not
that you're
saying
like
anything, right? Yeah.
It's true. We're all going to leave this thinking he didn't tell us anything at
A
all.
lot of ins, a lot of outs. There's a lot going on here. But we did
a lot of
get
moving pieces.
Yeah, we did get the second half of the prosecutor's file, which is all the appeal stuff. And then we ended up. So on Monday, I just to let you guys kind of know how the week's going so far. Monday, Eric and I took off and we were looking for a particular witness. Kind of struck out on that, kind of burned the day, and then talked to somebody Monday night, and then we had to go actually scan the whole DA's file because they gave it to me in paper. That was about 1,500 pages, so we spent quite a bit of time at the scanner yesterday getting all that stuff done. We're indexing all that, but where we're going from here, we're kind of trying to decide: do we keep going forward with all the story and the stuff that we're pulling apart, or do we back off a little bit here and we start, because we haven't laid down a whole lot of like basic facts of the crime yet, because we just got right into this was the state's case. This is how we've already dismantled it, because that's kind of the work that I'd already done leading up to this, just to figure out what was going on. So we're going to kind of take a step back this week, and we're going to be starting to work on the crime scene investigation, the autopsy, stuff like that we normally do. So this week will be a little less storytelling and a little more of starting to get into some of the meat and potatoes of the case is what we have going on this week. Also this week, what can I tell you? I made contact with the Attorney General's Conviction Integrity Unit.
Ooh.
And I can So here's the thing, like any official communication has to go through their like media relations. And so I'm
Okay.
waiting for I'm waiting for an official statement. So I'll just tell you this. I've made contact. We're waiting on an official statement where they're at. And we already kind of knew that the CIU has had this case for a significant amount of time already. Can't really tell you much more than that. It was an encouraging phone call. That's what I can tell you. And so that's kind of the stuff that we have going on right now. What did you guys think of this episode? I think it was kind of an important one for me. There really, sorry, I'm rambling so much right now because like I have 4 different things going on. So I've got like the investigative work we're doing, other things that we're doing, and putting together an episode and breaking down all these documents all at the same time. So I'm kind of scattered with where I'm trying to be at right now. Because there's certainly more with the Sonia Lucas thing that I'm still piecing together that's going to come later, but that's why we're pulling back right now. So how about this? How about I stop rambling? And what did you guys think of the episode?
So I'll just start off right with a question, right? With like this episode raised a lot of questions, more than it did provide answers, I feel like, for me.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest one is, how can we truly believe, like, it's bonkers to believe that they didn't interview Sonia Lucas the night of, like, that there's no document saying they interviewed her. DeMario's body was 6 feet from her door,
mm-hmm.
and they have no interview with her.
I don't think there's any question that they did interview her. Obviously we heard her story,
mm-hmm.
but like when you read McGinnis's reports, it references the original statement.
Yeah.
But the original statement isn't in the file.
Well, I guess that's what I'm trying to get at, is it's bonkers for them to make us try to believe that there was no interview.
Yeah. And I just want to make sure I'm being fair with that. I don't think that I don't think anyone has from the state side or the police side has claimed that they didn't interview her that day. It's not there. Eric and I were talking about this yesterday because we're going through the prosecutor's file where they have the murder book copied in their file, and we're going through it. And there's lots more there than what I got, but there's still all these crazy. And I'm trying to, because she's new doing this, so I'm trying to explain to her. I'm like, this is not normal. Like every time we're reading a report, and it generates questions that like you have like that, right? So we're like, okay, so when did this happen, or where did this? Usually, the next page, the answer's there. And in this case, it's not. It's so scattered. Like, so for example, you read a report that says, in Sonia Lucas's previous interview, she claimed she didn't know anything. And we're like, okay, where's the previous interview?
Right.
And it's not there. They're acknowledging that it happened, but it's not. And there's all these insane gaps in this case file.
Well, let me ask you, just to go back to one of the original correspondences, and then what he replied to your kind of more calling out letter, this idea of a former chief who didn't understand the rules of evidence, who shredded a bunch of documents. That's sort of what are the circumstances in which that could be the reason that suddenly certain pieces of the file would be is that kind of a catch-all? Do you feel like that was thrown out there as a catch-all? Like, and by the way, if there's any documents missing, it could be that those specific documents just happened to be shredded by someone who thought they could shred them?
So, no. So, well, here's the thing. When he sent that first email, I know personally the chief that was the chief before him, and who had been chief for a long time. So I contacted him. His name's Roger Lang, and asked him because I assumed he was referring to Roger. So I said, I'll find out. I talked to Roger, and he said, he's like, no, I didn't do that. He said, but the chief before me did. There was an instance where they just were basic. Sounds like basically he told some officers to go into the storage room and clean a bunch of this crap out, and then they shredded a bunch of files. He said, so that did happen. So what it seems like what happened is that happened, and that now has and this is my hypothesis, that becomes this catch-all for, well, now we don't have like anything anybody asked for, because they didn't shred the whole room, right? They shredded some stuff.
Right. It seems a little crazy for someone to be like, this file looks like it could be thinned out a little bit. I'm just going to
Yeah.
randomly grab some pages from this one specific case and shred those, and then I'll do it for a different case.
And that's that's kind of what I'm getting at. Like, that didn't happen, right? So
Right.
the fact that all the transcripts of interviews and tapes and recordings and all this stuff is missing, that's what he's claiming. Well, that was all basically he's claiming we had the murder book, which was the basic investigative file, and then they had all this other stuff, and it must be all the other stuff got shredded. What that chief didn't do is say, go through each file and pull out randomly, like pull the timesheet out of that one and shred it. So like, that's bullshit. That is not an excuse. This former chief shredding case files is not why just the timesheet is missing from this case file. So no, that excuse doesn't hold water at all. Could be, yeah, there's no way that happened.
Right. But also, why did that chief shred case files? You can't just look at a room and say it's getting full. Let's go ahead and shred some stuff. Wouldn't you just anyway, whatever.
I don't know all the details of it, other than it was something to the extent of, basically it came down to the excuse for it came down to like a lack of communication, as in like the chief meant get rid of this stuff we don't need, and the officers that went and did it just threw out a bunch of stuff.
Right.
Supposedly. Gotcha. Something like that. But who knows what happened. But it makes for a great excuse for any FOIA request ever, anytime, for anything dated before that, is like, oh, the chief shredded a bunch of stuff.
So I do have another quick one that kind of is along the lines with Sonia, and that's the idea that Mario said JoJo. Do we even know that was Jody's street name?
I think so. So I was told, and that's, there's people that are connected to the case that I've spoken to, before I got into it. And that was like one of the things people said, like, nobody ever called Jody JoJo. But you heard me like interview LaShawn, the owner of Dialos, and he referred to Jody as JoJo.
Okay.
So, and like throughout the report, there were different people that say that, refer to Jody as JoJo. So I think that, and there was somebody that a couple people that testified too, that they were known as that. So, I had been told that's not even what they went by. That was what they went by. And McGinnis knew that there's so much stuff that I want to come up, because I went through this whole file yesterday. I'll just tell you this: there's definitely a connection between Jody and McGinnis from prior to this.
Okay,
that we'll get into later.
Okay. God, I hate when you drop those little. But yeah,
I think the idea of them knowing the street name probably isn't that absurd, because if you go back and listen to that Andrew Collins interview that you did a few years ago that you just redropped, he was looking for an individual that he only knew their street name.
Yeah. Oh, there's stuff all through this file like that. Like they're looking for Coco, and then they have to talk to 3 people to figure out what Coco's actual name is so they can find Coco. Yeah, there's a lot of that.
I just want to quickly, before I forget, Tool Girl just asked a couple minutes ago, just so we know, did Benton Harbor have body cams on their police officers at the time of this murder? Do you know?
I do not know. I don't think so, but we don't have dispatch tapes. So I'm sure, and I asked for, in my FOIA request, any and all recordings. And I believe I even mentioned, specifically mentioned body cam footage if it exists, and was told that there's none of that. There are no recordings.
Got it. Well, I thought the episode was great. I was, like everyone else, pretty blown away hearing Sonia talking about what really happened and the whole affidavit and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that you followed your instinct, that the story of I heard a bunch of shots, so I ran outside to get potentially right in the middle of it to see what was going on, seemed very surprising and strange. I love that you were like, I guess that maybe is going to be one of the early threads I pull on to see what happens.
Well, yeah, and that was literally, and now you guys are seeing, like, when I came right out the beginning, I'm like, this is wrongful conviction, because the pre-work, it wasn't my intention to, like, we've never been a show where some of like the bigger productions where they spend a year investigating a case and produce this whole series and it's already kind of predetermined. We do things in real time, but I do have to do some preliminary investigative work to make sure that it's a case that we should be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like Sony's the first person I interviewed, the very, very first person that I interviewed in the case. And it was just like, well, this is the linchpin of the state. It's very obvious from the trial record. Like without Sonia, Jody doesn't get convicted. It's a completely weak and circumstantial case. So let's just go see what she's got to say. And then, and I had heard rumors that she has told people that that's not what really happened. So I went to go find out, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
Like, okay. And her actual story sure does make a lot of sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just to kind of I'm not getting out in front of this necessarily, but I think my thought as all of that was playing out in the episode was, is this one of those situations that we've heard of before? And obviously you've dealt with it in past cases where someone says, hey, I said this thing, it's not true for whatever reason, whether it be that, the police convinced you or someone told you your brother had done something and you thought that you needed to say that they did, whatever.
Uh-huh.
Is this a situation where, the argument would naturally be by the prosecution, like, well, this person is lying. Like they're lying now. They were telling the truth then and they're lying now. Like,
that certainly could be an argument. I don't expect to get that argument, to be honest with you. I mean, I have not. I've got an email into Amy Bird, the new prosecutor. I haven't heard back from her yet, but just from what I've heard from other people that have dealt with her, she seems to be a fair prosecutor and seems to have, looking for the truth in any of her cases. I'm sure she's really overwhelmed right now I'm sure I've talked about this, but the sitting prosecutor just up and resigned kind of without notice a couple months ago. Like I was communicating with him, like he was emailing me back and forth about this case, and then all of a sudden, poof, he's gone. And so she just took over, and so now she's got this whole caseload on top of her. So it's she's dealing with. Someone could try and make that argument, but you got to look at like the totality of the evidence. And obviously, you guys haven't heard it all, but like look at just what you know now. Yeah. So she's claiming that she was pressured by McGinnis and McKinney to give this statement, and that they told her to say, like straight up, the story came from them.
Mm-hmm.
You have Sherelle Moore on the stand saying what McGinnis wrote in his report is not true. That's not what I said. Also, I told him about my handicapped mother and kids being in the house, and he eliminated that. You have LaShawn Harper saying they came to the restaurant the very next morning, and I told them then and at that point he did now he doesn't know the time. He doesn't remember the time. That was clear. He was just, you hear a lot of, this is what LaShawn remembers the parts of the night that were abnormal, right? That they had to work really late, that they had drinks after work, that Cornelius gave Jody a ride home. But when it comes to like, what time was it? Who signed who out? You heard a lot of like, well, usually we do that. And that's how, because those are routine things that happen all the time. It's kind of how you expect memory to work at that point. But at that, hours later, when the police chief came in and asked where Jody was, and LaShawn says we were working late, at that point, he knew exactly. I'm sure he told him we left at fill in the blank time, whatever that time was. And that's not in there. So you have all the, and then the time of the murder that, that they're pushing this 12:40 time of the murder, when McKinney was dispatched to the scene at midnight and was interviewing Victoria Miles at 12:30, and all these different indications that the crime happened so much earlier. So it's not like everything in this file seems in the up and up. Looks like the officer did a great job and was doing their best to be open and honest with everybody. And there's just one person saying he lied. Rather, we have, like, just in the little bit we've heard so far, really only 3 episodes on the case, it's just stacking up. Every single person we heard from has either said McGinnis has lied, something's missing from the report that I told McGinnis, that we're pressured. Sherelle in her testimony also said that McGinnis pressured her, kept trying to get her to change her story. Mm-hmm. So I think when you have all of that stacked up, just a little bit ago in the YouTube chat, Dr. Shiloh from LA Not So Confidential had just said, and she's a professional that works with law enforcement in her capacity. And she says, I already have some strong feelings that some cops should be going to federal prison over this case. So like that's the feeling that people that know the system are getting hearing this. So I don't expect, that's a really long answer to a short question, but I don't expect that a prosecutor would be like, nope, she's lying. She's lying now. Also, not for nothing, it was a stupid story.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, who would believe? Like,
Right.
how the hell did anybody believe it to begin with? You know?
Yeah. Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I think Wendell's fine too in McKinney's report about being dispatched at midnight.
Yeah.
That's big. Because you know, as you said earlier, you said he interviewed Victoria Miles at 12:30. And you're
Yeah.
like, that could be 12:30 or it could be a typo.
Right.
But are you telling me now there's 2 typos?
Oh, and Wendell responded more to that even in the on the fan page, like the sequence of events.
Mhm.
So you have McKinney in his report saying that he ordered London to secure the scene. I think it was London, one of the cops, is to secure the scene after he had been briefed and done all this stuff. And then when he started interviewing, he interviewed some neighbor or some of the people that were gathered around. And then when he went to go interview Victoria Miles, he ordered people to secure the scene. Then you have is either London or Takamoto. One of the reports says that at the direction of the detective, they secured and taped off the scene. And then you have McGinnis's report says when he got to the scene, the crime scene was it says that was already taped off. So you like start to piece together the order of things, and you see very clearly. Obviously, McKinney was there way before McKinney was there well before McGinnis got there, and so you can like piece all these little things together and see that like there's just this 12:40 time was just completely made up, and now we're going to be getting into at some point. There was a homicide task force involved, so they had some state troopers there and Barron County sheriffs that were there, and reading some of their reports. And like I just was glancing through them yesterday when we were scanning through them, and one of them said that the murder happened approximately midnight on their report, but on McGinnis's report it says it happened at 12:40.
Right. Yeah, that moment in the trial, as you read it and depicted it with the tape running down and all that kind of stuff, was incredibly frustrating. We've seen that before. We've absolutely seen that. I mean, that's a real kind of Christina Gutierrez stipulating to, livor mortis, or, talking like the cell phone stuff that you're like, but wait, you want to be able to wind back the clock and go, no. I have to be able to stop you from saying that. I have to be able to stop you from stipulating to something that is a huge, huge other linchpin of the case. So that was sort of that was kind of a hard listen too. I mean, listen, you are definitely riling people up already, and it just does not take very long. We're a couple of episodes in, and already people are like, "Oh, what?
Yeah,
No."
that stipulation was bananas. It was
Yeah.
more than just
Oof.
the fact that the very basic math shows that the stipulation was inaccurate, but it's just the to me the sheer incompetency and unpreparedness of the defense attorney. Like, how have you not heard this tape before?
Yeah.
Like, you hear him, like he says in the transcript, I don't know what's going to be said still on this. He hasn't heard it. And instead of like what should have happened in that, first of all, I should have heard it beforehand. What should have happened there was, can we take a recess so I can hear the rest of this tape so I can decide if the jury needs to hear it or not? Instead, he's just like, we'll just stipulate to 12:40 being the first call.
Yeah, I mean, it couldn't have sounded less like he was like, none of this matters. None of this matters. This is a waste of everyone's time. Why are we even bothering with this? Like that's coming from Jody's defense attorney. Is like, what?
Right.
Why are we bothering with all of this? Come on, let's move on.
Yeah. And I truly think
No.
that it's because so little, some information, and I need to verify the exact days. So don't consider that, because I haven't verified through like the documentation, but from what Jody has told me and other people connected to the case have told me, I do know that Jody had an attorney that was representing them through. So there's this whole thing. So Jody was arrested the very next day. So this was a Thursday night. Friday, they go in and they do they're interrogated, they're interviewed, and they get arrested. But they weren't arrested for the murder. There was no evidence that they committed the murder. So they arrested them on the armed robbery so that they could hold them. So Jody was held for the armed robbery all the way until July of the next year. It wasn't until after Sonia Lucas's testimony or statement came in. And from what Jody says at that point, the judge was telling the prosecutor, like, you need to either take them to trial or drop this case, because they really didn't have any evidence against them on the armed robbery either. They were getting jailhouse witnesses and snitches stuff to come forward. but there was nothing solid for that either. And at that point, they got Sonia Lucas' testimony, and then they charged them with the murder at that point.
Wow.
That is just terrifying. I mean, for
Yeah.
anyone, I don't care what your record is. I don't care. I just don't care. The idea, and we've again heard about this happening before, the idea that you just let someone sit as you try to figure some stuff out and it's just like, oh, that's
Right.
very
Well,
unnerving.
and what I was getting at was Jody had an attorney, like a public defender, working with them during that was also then transferred over and was supposed to represent them at trial. And from what Jody, and this is the part I'm not sure about the exact timing, but from what Jody says, 10 days before the trial, that attorney was taken off the case and White was put on it. So White was, according to Jody, White was only on the case for 10 days before the trial.
Oh my goodness.
And so if that's the case, they look at this police file and it says 1240, 1240, 1240, 1240, 1240. Well, it doesn't. And if they don't have the timesheet to know that it was 1205, so they see 1240, 1240, 1240. They see Sherelle says that they're home at 11. And so the police file says Jody's home from work at 11. The murder happened at 1240. And then Sherelle gets back at 3 something in the morning, and Jody's there. So Jody's unaccounted for based in McGinnis's file. Jody's unaccounted for from 11 p.m. until 3 in the morning. Right. So it doesn't matter if the crime happened at 1240 or 1230 or 1:30 or 2 o'clock. Right. And so I think that's part of it. But they never, Jody's attorney never investigated. I know from talking to Princella and LaShawn that the first they heard about the trial was when they were subpoenaed to go to the trial. They never ever spoke with Jody's defense attorney prior to the trial.
My goodness.
Okay. Yeah. Depending on how this all shakes out, I feel like this is one of those cases that should be taught to students in criminal justice. Like, because there are just I mean, depending on what happens with the timing and you find out about the White being taken off, it feels like essentially now we're just building a checklist of things that you can just go, okay, well, here's how to get the result you want. With bad evidence, you can still get the result you want. You just have to do these things.
These
you know
things.
What I mean?
It makes it really easy. Yeah.
I don't want that to be true.
Somebody, an indigent person of color from a community that has no trust on the police and isn't going to be willing to speak and doesn't have resources to really defend themselves. Yeah, all that adds into it. We better get into the question. We're already 20 minutes in.
Let's do it.
We haven't got into the questions yet.
Let's do it. Let's get a little bit of clarification, as again, we're trying so hard to pin down times and find ways to prove things happened or didn't happen, where and when they did. Colin says, if Demario was pronounced dead at the scene by a medical professional, his death certificate should show the date and time this happened, which presumably was before the blanket mentioned by Sonia was placed over him. Would this be true, and would there be a copy?
No, I do have the copy. I just found it this morning, actually. But no, the medical examiner comes later. So Demario's official time of death is like 3:47 in the morning.
Right.
Because that's how. So you got to wait for the medical examiner to get there. They've got to do their examination, and then they will pronounce them dead. So those times are never the actual time of death. That is when they were pronounced dead. Because somebody else on the Facebook page had been like, well, you're saying that this happened before midnight, but Demario's headstone says that they died on November 16th, not the 15th. That's because their official time of death was 3:40 something in the morning on the 16th.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thanks for that clarification. Other questions about Sonia. I think there are definitely folks who are concerned with Sonia's safety. I saw a post about that just here in the chat as we're speaking now. But also folks wondering, like, for example, Julia says, no, sorry, I'm going to quickly, that's not the one I wanted to bring up. So sorry, Erica. Lilia says, this episode really underlined the care with which you do the good work that you're doing. Really appreciate it. Did Ms. Lucas risk being charged with perjury when she agreed to be on this episode? I worry she has willingly put herself in a vulnerable position for the sake of justice and should be protected. And Madeline said, is there a statute of limitations for perjury regarding Sonia's statement?
I don't think she has any risk of that. I mean, we discussed it briefly, but also there is a statute of limitations on perjury. I don't know what it is. I'm not a lawyer. But like most things other than murder, there's a statute of limitations of 3, 5, 7 years, something like this, and this has been over 20 years since then. And again, in order for that to happen, you'd have to have a prosecutor that is really dug in and is trying to do things. I think of like Jay Wilds and Kevin Urich and Thiru Vignaraja. Like those are the, from the Anand Syed case, those are the type of prosecutors you expect to, in order to try to stop somebody from coming forward. We're going to charge you with perjury and we're going to do this. I don't think that's what we're dealing with here.
Great. Brian says, did the Benton Harbor police interview Sonia's stepfather? My guess is no, but he should have been able to corroborate the lie of her opening the door and speaking with Mario if it truly happened that way. She says she woke him up after the gunshots.
So that I'm told yes, but there's no report of it. Is it? And that's another way. And he's sadly has passed away since then. But yeah, I was told by Sonia and some other folks that, yeah, he was interviewed that night, which again, that was another one of those things like, why didn't they interview the other adult there? And they're like, oh, they did. They just said they did. Well, they didn't say they didn't. They just didn't include anything in the report as though that had happened.
Right.
Statute of limitations in Michigan for perjury is 6 years.
6 years. There you go. Thanks, Zach.
Yeah, she's golden. And so Juliet says she really appreciates that that Sonia is telling the truth now, and that she's very admirable of her to sign the affidavit. She's so glad that she did. But Julia is just wondering, because you didn't play the entire interview, if Sonia expressed regret or anything like that.
No, not. It was interesting. It was an interesting discussion because it was more like Sonia didn't want to acknowledge that she had said the lie to begin with, if that makes sense. She was like, how would I know? I didn't say that. I'm like, and you heard little bits of the interview, that I played where I'm like, yeah, but you did eventually testify to that. Because you heard me, my approach at the beginning was, I'm not on anybody's side. I just want to know what happened. So just tell me what happened.
Right.
So she went into it like, okay, you just want to know what happened. This is what happened. And then I kind of was like, well, but you had testified to this, and that's when it got into, well, that's where that came from. But we really didn't get into, and it wasn't my place. I'd be very, in a situation like that, when I realized pretty early on, this is very significant, and we're going to need an affidavit out of this. And I need every minute of this documented, so no one can say I tried to lead her or do anything like that. So like that wasn't my place or time to like get into a podcast interview. Like, what do you think about this now? Or why,
right.
Why do you feel about that? I wasn't going there at all. I was just very strictly sticking to the facts.
Yes.
Of what happened. So
yeah.
No, we didn't really, I never asked her that question because it wasn't relevant to what I was trying to accomplish in that interview.
Sure. Well, and if it's true that her son was, they were looking for him and they were sort of threatening her with that.
No, she said they didn't threaten her.
Oh, well, sorry.
Yeah.
That she was worried that was in play, even if it was not explicitly said. And you've given us a pretty strong context for what the community's relationship with the police was like already. So, but I wouldn't take her not saying that in this interview as like she feels it doesn't bother her that somebody has been in prison because of, that moment.
Yeah, no, it just didn't come up. And I also want to acknowledge too, I don't know if anybody has a question on this in the follow, but some people talked to me about it in the fan group on Facebook, that they were concerned about, if I was leading her in any way. And I think the one part they got into is when I mentioned like, so did you feel like they were pressuring you, or this pressure came in?
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe I had introduced that. Just know that there's over 20 more minutes to this interview. That's all. And I had, because of situations like this where you have an affidavit and it's probably going into court. I maintained the original unedited with metadata showing that it's the original recording. It's never been edited. The full thing. I only played little pieces of it for you guys, but I can just assure you that I didn't lead her anything. So some of what you were hearing was me repeating back to her what she had already said, particularly that part about being pressured. I actually didn't ask many questions at all, other than explain to me what you mean by that. or can you expand on that? Things like that. I'm just letting her go. The only question, you heard it, the only real question I asked was because I had been told by other people that that the police had been threatening her. And so that was the one, because she had never said through the interview that she had been threatened. So I wanted to make sure you heard that part where I did ask her that question did come from me when I said, did you feel like they were, or I said, did they threaten you? And she said no. And then we left it at that. Like, I didn't, but I had to ask that question because of what I had heard prior to going into the interview.
Right. And I would also add, I mean, this is a little bit different because obviously saying that someone actually named their killer before they died is, you would imagine that if you were the one being asked to do that, you could assume that you were a big part of the case.
Mm-hmm.
But God knows what they told her about the case. I mean, think about other cases in which someone said, I didn't know I was important. I didn't
Yeah.
know. I thought I just said a thing that supported a bunch of other stuff, and they had all this stuff, and this was just bolstering something that was already a strong case. So again, I'm not saying that it's not a big deal to say I heard them name their killer, but you don't know. If they say, we know it, we've proved it, we have everything we need, we just need to button this up with you. You know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily know what role you're playing in a case overall. Just, your tiny little part of it.
Yeah.
And you may not even know that if they've been lied to about what your part is.
And you should know this too, like what she's saying. And then now that I'm reading more and more to the file, like this was like, it wasn't just tell us who DeMario said, like the pressure that she's alleging was put on her was not, we need you to say that DeMario told you who killed him. And then she came up with, well, he said JoJo did it. That's not what she's alleging.
Mm-hmm.
She's alleging they told her, we need you to say that he said JoJo did it. And that's when when I said, like, this appears to be like they're absolutely framing Jody. Like that, like they, I can't get too far ahead of myself, but how they got to that point is bananas too. I'll give you a little piece of it because I don't know where it'll come in. So there was somebody that came forward based on some reward money. Literally in the report, it says, when I started offering reward money, this person had told me that he was at Sonia's that day. And then it was like all the other witnesses obviously verified that he was not there, that the whole thing was made up. But then said the DeMario had told Sonia who killed them, but it was a different name. It was a different name, right? So this person tells McGinnis that Sonia told him that DeMario in his dying breath said it was this other person. And then he took that story and goes to her. And after she says, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true, that's not true. And then finally gets her to say it. But instead of the name that the other person had said, insert JoJo into it instead.
Oh, no.
Mm-hmm.
That's really bad.
Trust me, people, this case is...
That's really bad.
We're just scratching the surface. This is so much worse. It gets so much worse.
This is the cringiest case so far. I mean, I am grimacing and cringing left and right. Ugh.
I know other listeners brought this up, but even just like her details of the murder, of the idea that there's no blood. She sees no blood. He's hurt, but there's no blood.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden there's a mouthful of blood.
Yeah, in the trial testimony and that story. Yeah. Right. Because in the real story, he was covered up with a sheet the whole time. Mm-hmm. And that was one of the things for me when I was interviewing her. Like there was so much veracity to it when she was interviewing me. She's like, I went out and they knocked on the door. I came out and she, the first thing they asked was, do you know this person? And she's like, I don't know who that is. They're under a sheet. And then every time I brought up again, I'm like, so did you didn't talk to him at all? And then you could hear her. She starts to get heated about it. She's like, how much? He was under a white sheet. When I opened the door, he was under a white sheet over. It's such a very specific memory of him being under a sheet.
I'm curious to see. I know you said next week we're going to get into like the autopsy and that stuff. I'm curious to see the autopsy because I'd like to see what his injuries really were too.
Mm-hmm. I'll save that because I gotta have something to write for this. This week, I believe Erica's words at the end of the day yesterday is like, "Oh, we're cooked the rest of the week because now we've been crazy busy this week doing other stuff, and now we've got to like write an episode." And just so you guys know, we're recording this Wednesday, so we'll be starting that process on Thursday for Sunday's episode.
Gotcha. Linwood says, are there any documents other than the timesheet that were in the prosecutor's files, but not in the files from the police department? If the answer is yes, I'm sure we'll be going over it in a future episode. Just wanted to see if there were other bombs like that to look forward to.
Oh, yeah, there's more.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
Imagine this. Imagine there's a report in the police file that looks one way, and the same report is in the prosecutor's file, and it looks completely like there's parts of it missing in the prosecutor's file. Imagine something like that.
Oh, it's gross.
Okay. Christina says, from the very first intro episode, I've been wondering about this particular issue every week. I know that Benton Harbor is predominantly Black, but what about the larger demographics of the county? What was the racial makeup, for example, of Jody's jury composed of? Wondering if that could have played a role in the decision-making process of the jury.
Those are good questions that I'll have to get back to you on later when we get into that stuff.
Got it. Melanie's wondering if it's well, again, every week we get questions about cell phone records and diner the records of the diner to again try to help pin down times that phone calls were made and so forth.
Sorry, I'm thinking because there was a part that I was thinking about. This is a tricky episode this week to put together because it's like the crime scene and the autopsy and all this like evidence, but there's no evidence, right? So there's not much to put together. But I mean, the short answer is no. There's nothing in the police file of any phone records for anyone. But I guess now is the time. But I found the report where they returned DeMario's cell phone back to his girlfriend Rolanda after they analyzed it.
Okay.
But no analysis in the report in the file.
Wow.
Because more importantly to me at this point, I think it's I keep saying this and perhaps I'm overly confident. I'm very confident this conviction gets overturned, but we need to get justice for DeMario. And we need to find out who killed DeMario, which comes back to what was he going to do when he dropped Canvas off and he had something important to do? Why was he there? Who was he meeting? The police had his phone to analyze it. All I have is a report that they gave it back to Rolanda and no analysis in there. I mean,
it's not the best tracks covering, if that's what's going on. There's some
it's
definitely some oversights to documentation referring to other documents that have been pulled. That's not the most thorough covering your ass, I guess. Yeah,
like where is that was actually the part we were at when I had that conversation with Erica yesterday.
Yeah.
When I was like, in a normal file, you find this document. And you're like, oh, cool. There's a cell phone analysis. We should be able to find out who DeMario was talking to. We should be able to find out at what time DeMario got there. There are all these different things. And then, nope. None of that's in the file anywhere.
Well, I'm very hopeful there's a very rational explanation for all of this that doesn't amount to a full-on massive frame job.
I'm going to bounce back to the demographics really quick. Berrien County is 74% white, about 14% Black, and 6% Hispanic.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. That's really it for our questions. We have a couple of questions about people wondering about things that I'm sure we'll get to, or just like kind of confusion about. Like, for example, Emily, I want to acknowledge I saw your post. I think it's a little confusing just because Jody was in a different follow-up, a different podcast's conversation, and she and a fellow listener of Truth and Justice brought up the gun, saying that for sure it came from Jody's foster brother. There's just kind of it's like this happened over here in this other conversation, and this person said that they thought that we had already talked about it, but had we? Are we going to be talking more about? I know if it's the shotgun that Emily you're referring to, I know we talked about the gold painted shotgun.
Yeah, we're going to do probably a whole episode, or maybe probably hopefully we'll be able to do it in just a single episode. But everything about the armed robbery, because that's the majority of that. Like the majority of the case file. Imagine a ream of paper,
Mhm.
like a 500-page ream of paper. Like that's basically the police file thickness that I have from the prosecutor's office, and I would say 2/3 of it are all about the investigating the robbery. Because remember, that's where Jody was being held, was because of the robbery the whole time.
Right.
So we'll get into the gold shotgun and that, and also Jody. Jody, as I mentioned a couple weeks ago or last week, that Jody has been sending the pages of their biography to put together. Erica last week took in everything that we had got and had like 71 pages of it. Then we were having issues with JPay. Figured out that seems like there's a file storage limit. So because I kept getting notifications that I had more emails coming in, but the emails weren't there. So there's a little bit more to that. But Jody talks in pretty good detail about that whole situation in there. So we've got some of that coming. So we'll get to all that stuff with the gun. I do want to mention though, one listener had pointed out, because in the last episode, I had said I'm trying to figure out the timesheet. Did the defense attorney have it? Was it was it turned over in discovery? They had found, and I apologize to that listener that I haven't had a chance to dig through those appeals files, but some of the appeals documents are online, and they had found at some point Jody had filed an appeal saying that they had the timesheet from I don't know how they got it, and that they gave it to the defense attorney for the defense attorney to use, and they didn't use it. So just to I have to look into that more. But based on what they're saying, that would indicate that it wouldn't be Brady. It would be more ineffective assistance to counsel.
Right.
Because if somehow Jody had, I don't know how Jody got it when they're in jail. Filing FOIA requests, or if the old attorney, I have no idea how any of that plays out. But I just want to make sure that we're being upfront about everything, that apparently there is something in an appeals document that indicates that at least Jody had that and tried to give it to the defense prior to the trial. So we'll get into all that some more later, but I just wanted to make sure I acknowledge that.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you. I've been in touch with Jody over JPay, and I thought probably they would be okay with me sharing that they are completely blown away by how many, in their words, good people there are who are concerned about this case, who are showing up for Jody, showing up for truth and justice, and it says that they say that it brings tears to their eyes. So I thought that was lovely. And for those of you who have been in touch, you already know this, but it's super appreciated.
Yeah, and again, you guys cannot underestimate enough how important it is to someone who's locked away in prison for any reason, whether they're rightfully or wrongfully, getting communication from the outside world and having somebody to talk to that cares about you is a huge deal. So if you're always thinking about what can you do to help, send Jody an email through JPay. It's super easy, and that makes all the difference in the world. And with that being said, we need to go ahead and wrap this thing up. We need to get into building this week's episode. Again, we're going to talk about the crime scene. We're going to be talking about the autopsy and some of the forensic work that was done on the case. All that's coming this Sunday, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye, guys.
End our recording. We're going to end this stream now, and I need you to hang out, Janet, because there's something I need to tell you, because
Right.
you missed our pre-chat. So everybody in the chat, thank you guys so much. I would love to stay in chat longer, but we got busy, and I have important things to talk to JP about. So we'll talk to you guys also next week. Bye, guys.
Bye. Why are we whispering?